Hello, welcome back to another episode of A Little Atypical. My name is Elijah, you can call me Lay, and I am so excited right now. I'm feeling all the fall vibes. I lit a candle, it's like cinnamony with a touch of apple, and then I'm like in new bed sheets, they're red. I have on top of me like a plaid blanket, and I'm just in such a great headspace right now. Okay, so to start off, we're gonna do a little card pull. Before I started just talking and everything, I did some journaling and then I did some card pulling. And I have to share because this is for the collective, this is for the vibes. So the card we got for this episode is Look at the Bigger Picture, Full Moon in Sagittarius. I used the Moonology Oracle deck for this. And with this one, it kind of is about, like, are you thinking too much of the details of something? Are you being counterproductive? Are you being all talk and no action? And honestly, I feel like this is so fitting for today's episode because if you look at the title, it's all about gonna be sabotage. And honestly, I'm just calling everyone out. I'm calling myself out. I'm calling you out. So nothing personal, but I just found that so funny because I decided the episode while journaling and I was like, okay, let me just do a card pull. And then originally I was going to do self-care, but then I was like, then something in my brain said, no, do the Moonology deck because there's going to be something there, a message for you. And there it was. So like additional messages for this card is this situation have come around because you've been distracted. Be confident without being overconfident to win the day. Have you shown that you care? If not, now is the time. Find balance between speaking your mind and saying too much. So I was supposed to do an episode about refocusing and centering yourself in your goals, but I didn't like how that episode came out and I want to refilm it. So today's episode, as mentioned, is all about self-sabotage and like things that block your success and holding yourself accountable. Because honestly, today I just felt like such in a good vibe, good headspace. It just made me think like, what if I was like sabotaging myself all this time? And I think sometimes as people, we do have the tendency to do that. So what we're going to focus on is the ways you're potentially blocking your success. And hopefully if there's a part 2, we're going to talk about ways and actions and little things to do to overcome them. But we need to make awareness about what is actually blocking you. So with that being said, let's get into the episode. The first thing that causes a major block in things you want to go for is fear. So I thought of this because this entire week I've been kind of thinking about what's been holding me back from my dream of being a content creator. And the two things that came into my brain while journaling was, one, I have this fear of being seen, which also can translate the fear of judgment. So what that basically means is I am afraid of the criticism that I may get. But the crazy part about that is you don't know what type of reaction you're gonna get when you do something like that. But it's just, in my head, I don't expect it to be always good. I don't expect people to like what I put out. But then that goes into like a deeper thought in my psyche of like, why do I feel that way? Like, clearly I have some limiting belief or low self-worth in terms of myself. It's so interesting because last week on the other podcast, we did like this confidence episode, and I felt like I was struggling in that episode to say and come up with anything meaningful. And at that moment, that's when I realized I'm still struggling deeply with confidence. And that just made me think about it so deeply about why I struggle with that fear. Because for weeks I have been aware of like, okay, that's definitely what I'm afraid of. But then it kind of goes into the next part of another thing that may be holding you back. One thing that may be holding you back is that you may be associating the thing you want with traits that you feel are distant from yourself. What I mean by this is, one thing I was thinking about is how I view content creators / influencers. And I think internally I always saw them as people who are like outgoing, they're always attending events, sociable, personable, like aesthetic in some way, whether it's like their physical appearance is very aesthetic, whether they have a pretty face, a good sense of style, or something about them, or like they have things that are aesthetic, like whether it's how their room looks or what they do with their space. Or sometimes they just have like all these like crazy stories that keep people interested. And then when I started thinking about it, I felt like, oh, maybe that's why I feel like I won't be successful in what I want, because I see myself as the opposite of those things. Like, I'm a very introverted person, so I also think like the content I create, it wouldn't be exciting. And I'm not society's version of what a beautiful girl is. Of course, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, but there's different types of beauty. So there's like different ways a person could be beautiful, but I also struggle with feeling like I don't fit the beauty standards. Hence why I feel like if I was to grow in popularity, it wouldn't be because of that. And with that being said, when you associate something with opposite of your traits, that you're like saying like that thing that I want is so distant from where I'm at. So then it made me think like I need to stop seeing myself as boring or uninteresting and stuff like that, because if I see myself like that, it's like a direct opposition to what I want to be. So if you're unintentionally doing that, make sure to check in and call yourself out on it. The next thing is about actively not doing the things within your control, aka making excuses. So with this one, I started thinking about nothing personally, but like some examples of this is, I'm gonna just use a current issue that I see a lot during people my age, which is the whole job search thing. And honestly, it is rough out there. It is rough trying to get a job, and it is absolutely not in your control who hires you. However, what is in your control is finding a mentor in the field you want to go to. It is attending networking events. It is taking a course that's related to the skill that you need in that career path. So when we make excuses for things by saying like nothing is in our control, it's just simply not true. If I say I'm gonna just follow with the example, because all I've been thinking about and like feeling drawn towards, especially these past few months, is being a content creator, because I remember my life without it and it felt dull, and I felt like I was just radiating negative energy because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. So I no longer want to hold myself back from that, and I'm doing the steps it takes, even like working on my own beliefs, which is a huge part of going through and making sure you get over the blockages. The next thing is having an all or nothing mindset. So with this one, it's kind of like not appreciating where you're at in the moment. I thought about this because currently I got a temporary role, and it was exactly what I was manifesting. I mean, it was a work from home job, gave me flexibility, and it didn't feel too heavy against my lifestyle and the things I want to do, even though sometimes I still made excuses, which went back to the last one. But when you have an all or nothing mindset, it's kind of like you can't appreciate the process. And if you can't appreciate the process, that's where everything kind of goes out the window. Because there are going to be moments where it feels like you're just standing still and things are stagnant, right? But at those times, you can see what got you to that point, but you can also look at ways to expand for more growth later. And sometimes when there is a period of stagnancy, it is meant to show you need to pause. Nothing in this life is consistent, and you have to appreciate every spot you have been in to really not block yourself from greater things to come. Next thing is lowering the importance of your goals. And this one is specifically related to time management. With this one specifically, what I'm talking about is how many times have you said you wanted to do something and you just don't do it? But if someone was to ask you to do the same thing, that you would do it because there is more accountability and reliance on it. You have to do a project at your job, at school, at whatever you're doing, right? And think about when you have your solo project versus something you do in a group setting. Because there's more reliance on you in the group, sometimes you prioritize doing the group work instead of working on what you need to do solo. And life is just kind of like that. So after work, when you say, oh, I have to, let's say your goal is to start a business and launch a digital store. You don't work on your business plan because you say oh, I have to be up early in the morning and I'm kind of too tired to work on it now. Maybe I'll just work on it in the weekend. And then the weekend rolls around and because of your other responsibilities, because you haven't seen a friend in a while, they ask you to go somewhere with them or something like that and spend time with them. So then you end up not doing the thing you said you were going to do, and then it's back to the work week because of you need to prepare for the week to come. So what I'm saying is start making the things you want to do a need instead of a want. Change your language around them, be serious about them, and put them in the category of any means necessary. And of course, that doesn't include ruining your health. But other than that, make time for it, whether it's during a commute, if you take a bus or a train or some type of public transportation, maybe doing it while you technically have a lunch break, or cutting back on the TV time, whatever you want to do, make sure to prioritize it in your day. The last thing I'm going to mention is comparison. This one I thought about because sometimes a person, if you feel you should have something, sometimes it's not about what the person has, but you want the feeling from what the person gets. So when I was thinking about this example, I don't know why I was thinking more in the social media context of pick-me's, because at that point I just saw a random TikTok video on it while I was journaling, and that just made me think people who are pick-me's don't necessarily want the guy or the girl. They just want what the person represents, which is either a sense of status or validation, and they want that feeling, right? So sometimes when we set goals for ourselves, it's not because it's what we really want, but it's what we think we want. And on some ends, sometimes you don't actually want it. You just want it to fit in, Or on the other end, you want something, but you reject it because you don't want to be a follower or a sheep. I think it's important to have a sense of self and to know what is actually coming from you versus coming from other people, and what comes from your emotions. So with that being said, that is all the advice I have on this topic about blockages. And in another part, I hope to talk about actions we can do to get over the blockages, whether it's like mindset work or like little things and challenges we could do. I hope you found this episode very insightful. I am trying to get better at the whole podcast thing and talking thing, but for some extra content, be sure to check out my blog. Even today, I just posted a villain era blog post about personal transformation and stuff like that. So if any of that interests you, I'm going to leave a link in the description. And yeah. So until next time, I'm so sorry if this sounded rushed. I'm also going to give you a journal prompt of the week is take a moment to think about your blockages in the way I was constructing you. So think about some of the things I listed. Think about your fears. Think about your excuses. Think about even like the comparisons you've made to, or the comparisons that have been made of you. Because sometimes we don't get to choose who we get compared to or what we get compared to. And also take a moment to really identify your sense of self and know how much things are actually what you want. And that is your homework, or whatever you want to call it, your activity of the week. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you found it useful. And hopefully I can get better at this whole speaking thing, because whenever I do try to talk, my voice kept cracking and it was just very frustrating. Have a good day, evening, or night, and I'll see you next time. There goes the alarm.